My 28 female, fiancé 29 male, wants me to put his family before mine even at the expense of my family's health. Plus updates. Original post. I, 28 female, got engaged to my partner of 7 years, Ray, 29 male, in May. Both sides of our family were really happy about this, and we had a big family meal 2 weeks after getting engaged. His brother lives 250 miles away and couldn't get here for that meal, so we decided to have a meal just for his family in late June, when his brother would be back for the weekend. This weekend was arranged long before we got engaged, so he wasn't back just for the meal. Earlier this year, my sister Kate, 32 female, got a serious eye infection that very quickly turned into an ulcer, which scarred her cornea and left it at high risk of a perforation. She needed a corneal graft, but her surgeon was away for 4 weeks, so she was going to have to wait until he got back to have it. However, her eye didn't hold, and it perforated the day I was supposed to be going to the family meal with Ray's brother. Kate's partner was at work and had her phone turned off, and our mom was away with our stepdad. So when Kate called me to let me know what was happening, I knew she would be at hospital on her own. I immediately talked to my boss, and he let me go early so Kate wasn't on her own. I texted Ray to let him know what was going on, and it texted me back to send Kate his love, and to remind me about the meal that night. I ignored a comment about the meal as it was the last thing on my mind. Once I got to the hospital, I was taken back into a room where Kate was, to be greeted by 3 doctors and 2 nurses rushing around trying to help Kate. I was then informed that she needed to have an emergency operation to have her eye glued, or else she would lose it. The problem was that they didn't have a surgeon at that hospital that could do it, and she needed to go to another hospital an hour and a half away. They asked if she would need transportation or if I could take her. I said I would take her. Once we got to the other hospital, we were told that she would be having the operation at 5:30 p.m. I knew then that I wouldn't make the dinner, and texted Ray to let him know. He flipped out and basically told me to leave Kate at hospital and have her partner pick her up after the operation was done. At this point, I still hadn't been able to get a hold of Kate's partner. I told him that it wasn't going to happen and that he was out of order to even ask me to do that. I then texted his mom and told her what was going on. She was really supportive and told me to stay with Kate and let her know how the operation goes. A dinner can be rescheduled, Kate's health can't. I also spoke with his brother, who was equally as understanding. I stayed with Kate. Her operation was a success, and I got her back home around 9 p.m. Her partner had ordered some Chinese and offered me some, which I happily accepted as I hadn't eaten since lunch. With that, I didn't get home till about 11 p.m. and Ray was already asleep. Ray was very short with me for days after, and we ended up having a huge fight, where he told me that I should have put his brother and family before Kate. He said he was embarrassed going to the meal without me. I responded that I was embarrassed. He thought I would put a meal before my sister's health. This led to another week of awkwardness between us before we finally sat down and we sorted it out. Or so I thought. 8 weeks ago, Kate got her graft, and so far everything is going really well with it. On Saturday, his brother was here, so we went out for dinner with his family. His family were all asking about how Kate was doing, and I showed them a picture of the stitches in her eye. I thought that everything had gone really well until we got home and he got really angry, saying that I shouldn't have brought up Kate's health issues, and I shouldn't have shown them the picture. I argued that they'd ask about her and ask to see the picture. It ended with him telling me that I needed to put him and his family before Kate, or else we weren't going to work. His family will come before mine once we are married, so I should get used to it. I went upstairs and packed a bag. I'm now at my mom's house and has been bombarding me with texts and calls since I left. I do love him, but I will never put his family above my own family's health. I feel like he's expecting me to spend every holiday with his family and put their wants above my family's needs, which won't happen. I'm very close to my sister and my mom. That's not going to change. So I don't really know how to move forward or if I even want to. Has anyone experienced anything like this before? If so, how did you deal with it? Now for the top comments before reading the updates. You did exactly what you should. I'm revolted by his behavior, and you should call his mother and tell her what he said and why you're canceling the wedding. Lost deposit costs are less than what divorce costs. We haven't booked anything yet for the wedding, so that isn't an issue. The only issue would be the house as it's in my name, but with him living there for so long, I may have to pay him off. I'm not 100% sure how that would work though. Ask a lawyer and promise your ex nothing until you talk to a legal representation. I would probably just tell him to get out first, but I am also not a lawyer, so I can't really help there. Maybe his mom will guilt him? She seems really nice, and so does the brother. How he gets off acting like that, I'll never know. OP, get him out of the house and put an end to this connection. You must go back to your home with your parents and force him to leave after informing his family of what he said. He is an extremely repulsive person. If a spouse can't understand emergencies come up, it will be a hard marriage. Parents get old and need help. Brothers and sisters get sick and worse. It sounds ridiculous. And what you need to find out is, he this mad on his own? Or is it cause his family's mad at him? Which is even worse. His family are amazing, and they had no issue with me missing the dinner and have been so supportive through all of this. Her mom even dropped off a shepherd's pie to my sister and her partner the week after she had her graft, to help out a little. It was just him. His mom and brother are furious with him right now because of his attitude. His mom sounds like an absolute gem. She really is such a sweetheart. He is now insisting that I put his family before my own. I don't know how to move forward with him. You don't. You let him know this is a showstopper. Tell him to go argue with his mother about it. If she doesn't change his mind, it's over. Can you keep his family and dump him? They seem like nice, caring people. I wish I could. His mom is honestly one of the best people I've ever met. She did warn me in the beginning that Ray is like his dad whom I've never met, but I hadn't seen that until this happened. I think that I knew what I needed to do before I came here, but it's hard throwing 7 years of my life away. Now for the first update. Thank you so much for everyone that commented. I replied to as many as I could, but I read all of them. Warning, this is going to be longer than the original post. A lot has happened. For those that want a longer version, once I decided to end things with him, I knew that the main issue would be getting him out of my house. I owned a house outright. My grandma died 5 years ago and left her house to my mom, who sold it and split the money between me and my sister. I then bought my house with that money about a year after she died. I got in touch with my stepdad's friend, who was a landlord the day after I wrote my original post, who then put me in touch with a solicitor. He didn't have time to see me in person that day, but we did have a phone call where he gave me my options. In the UK, we have something called a Section 8 notice. This is a 14-day eviction notice, and the solicitor said this would be the quickest way to get him out. However, he could try and contest it if he wanted to, which would lead to court dates and could take months. I asked him to draw up the notice and date it for Friday, the next day. I'd already made a decision to end things with him after work on Friday, so that he could have the weekend to sort through his emotions before work on Monday. On Friday morning, I texted Ray and asked him to meet with me at our local pub after work. He quickly agreed. Not only is the pub a public space, but my stepdad and a few of his work friends go in there every Friday after work for a few pints, so I knew he would be there to step in if I needed him. Thank you for suggesting this, Redditors. I also picked up the eviction notice on my lunch break, so I was ready to give it to him. Cost £250, but was worth it. When I got to the pub, Ray was already there and my stepdad was stood at the bar with his workmates. I sat down with Ray and got straight to the point. I told him that it was over. I couldn't be with someone who didn't give me any support when I was going through one of the scariest moments of my life and expected me to drop my family for his. It doesn't matter what excuses he could come up with. I wasn't interested. I'd made up my mind and we were done. He stared at me in shock for what felt like an hour, but was probably only a minute or so. He then started saying I couldn't be serious. We'd been together for 7 years, and I was throwing it all away. I could never find another guy like him. I responded to the last comment with, I don't want a guy like you. That's why I'm ending it. I need someone who's willing to support me when times get tough, not get annoyed that the world isn't bowing down to what he wants. I then handed him an envelope with the eviction notice in, and my engagement ring. I told him I was giving him a few weeks to find a place and be out of my house. Then I stood up and walked over to my stepdad, who had bought me a much-needed drink, and stayed with him until my ex left, still looking in shock. I knew he wouldn't approach me whilst I was with my stepdad, as he has always been a little scared of him. This is obviously a very condensed version of what happened. Once I got back to my mom's house, I had one single text from him saying he wasn't moving out, and was going to contest the eviction until I'd come to my senses and got back with him. "We are not over," was how he ended the text. I just turned my phone off and decided to deal with the legal side of things on Monday. There was nothing else I could do. Saturday morning, I woke up and turned my phone back on and had another text from him saying that he would move out if I paid him £10,000, as that's what he'd paid towards bills whilst he had lived at a house. He paid for half the electric, gas, Wi-Fi, and Sky package. Note, the Sky package is only as expensive as it is because he has to have every sports channel known to man, so his half literally just paid for the sports channels. I'd already asked the solicitor about this though, and he'd assured me that I didn't owe him any money as he hadn't contributed to a mortgage or any renovations of the house. It was just general expenses. He also knew that I don't have £10,000 just laying around. Let's say I was irritated by this and decided to ring his mom to see if she could talk some sense into him. I'll call his mom Susan to make it easier. She was appalled by what I told her and said she would speak to him. She called me back about an hour later and asked me to meet her at the house. Ray was on an away day to watch his football team play and wouldn't be back till about 10 p.m., so I knew he wasn't there. I met her at the house with Kate, and Susan said that Ray's brother was on his way back home and they would have Ray out by the following afternoon. She hadn't even spoken to Ray, just his brother, but she promised he would be out. Susan then asked me to walk her through the house, showing her exactly what was his and what wasn't, so he didn't take anything that didn't belong to him. The next morning, I got a text from Ray calling me all the names under the sun for getting his mom and brother involved. I blocked him, and a couple of hours later, Susan texted me to let me know he was out and staying with her. I thanked her, and she told me that she would like to stay in contact, and I happily agreed to this. I went back to my house after work on Monday, changed the alarm code, and my stepdad changed all the locks for me. My stepdad is also arranging for a friend of his to install cameras around the outside of the house. This will be done over the weekend. Susan rang me on Tuesday asking if we could meet up, as she had some things she wanted me to know. So we met for lunch that day. It was at this time that she told me her ex was a controlling a-hole, who was incredibly selfish, and his selfishness was what she had seen in Ray for so long. That's why she had commented on him being like his father, but she had hoped that was the extent of Ray's attitude, and he hadn't picked up his dad's controlling behavior, which, to be fair, he hadn't up until this whole episode. She had left Ray's dad after he had punched Ray's brother in the face when he was 14 and Ray was 10. He had never laid a hand on her or their sons before, but one time was enough and she left with the boys. To her knowledge, her ex had never reached out to speak to Ray or his brother, and they hadn't spoken to their father in years. I didn't know any of this. All I had been told was that their dad wasn't in the picture and hadn't been for a long time. But Susan had thought I knew, and that's why she hadn't told me before. However, she had found out on Sunday night that Ray was back in contact with his father and had been for the past year. His dad had been putting lots of thoughts into Ray's head about how he is the man of the house and his family is all that matters. This had fed into Ray's selfish tendencies and had amplified them tenfold. Susan said that she had told him to find somewhere else to stay ASAP, as she couldn't even look him in the face. Then Ray and his brother had a huge argument that ended with his brother telling him that as long as Ray is in touch with her dad, then he will have zero contact with him. Even going so far as to tell him to spend Christmas with her dad because Susan is going to his house and Ray isn't welcome. When Susan took Ray's brother's side in all this, Ray flew into a rage and said he would move in with his dad. He then left the house but came back a couple hours later looking like he'd been crying. Turns out that his dad doesn't want him living with him and basically said he could be on the streets for all he cares. He's not putting a roof over a grown man's head. Susan thinks that Ray is now starting to realize everything he has lost due to him listening to his dad and has seen his dad's true colors. Susan is incredibly disappointed in him, but he's her son, so she is trying to be there for him as best as she can. However, she still wants him out as she doesn't trust him anymore. His brother still won't have anything to do with him. She has also told him to stay the heck away from me, as I don't need to be brought into this, and he has promised her that he will. Only time will tell if that's true, but I do have him blocked and everything, and if it turns up to the house, I'll just call the police to get rid of him. The more Susan told me about what had been going on behind my back, the more resolute I have become about wanting nothing to do with him. I never want to see him again, if I can help it. So all in all, Ray's life is a crap show, but as long as he stays away from me, then I don't care. I've been spending a lot of time with my sister and her partner as well, and my mom and stepdad, which has been great. I've never really been close to my stepdad, but this has brought us a lot closer together, which has been one huge positive out of all this. I'm not exactly happy right now, but I'll get there. There's still a lot of feelings that I need to unpack, and it will take time to move on from this whole situation. I don't think I will be dating for a while. I need to really get over all this and don't want to dump this on anyone else right now. For all those asking how Kate is doing, she's doing great. Had a hospital appointment on Monday, and her consultant said her eye's healing. In his words, marvelously, so that's a relief. Thank you to everyone that reached out to me. I hope there won't be any need to update this again, so this should be my final update. Second update. So I, 28 female, posted on relationship advice before about my now ex, 29 male. The post and updates in my profile, but basically my ex-fiancé wanted me to put his family before mine even at the cost of my sister's health. I ended up breaking up with him over it, and he was forced to move in with his mom, but then found out that he had been in touch with his abusive dad who has twisting his views on how a relationship should work. Last I heard was that his mom was kicking him out as she would not have anyone in her house that was in contact with her ex, and that he had tried to go live with his dad, but his dad had refused. I was completely no contact with him, so his mom was the one that had told me this. I hadn't heard from Ray in weeks, but yesterday he showed up at my house. I had a chain on my door, so opened it with that still attached. No way would I let him in. He basically told me that he had nowhere to live. His mom isn't speaking to him, and his dad won't put a roof over a grown man's head. His words, not mine. He asked if I would take him back or at least let him live with me. No way in hell would I get back with him, and getting him out the first time only went easy because his mom stepped in to help. He had threatened to take me to court knowing that if he did it, it could take months to get him out, and then said he would only move if I gave him 10,000 pounds. I contacted his mom, who was furious about that, and she turned up with his brother and forced him out. I told him that there was zero possibility of him ever living with me again, and that we were 100% over. He started shouting at me and calling me all sorts of names, so I threatened to call the police if he didn't leave and shut the door. I have cameras all over my house, so I caught everything he did and said on camera and have saved it to a USB just in case. He then went crying to all our mutual friends, and it managed to get back to his mom. She called me and asked what happened. I told her, and she then informed me that she had put her house up for sale and was moving 300 miles away to be nearer to her other son. Her and Ray had a huge argument about this, and she finally kicked him out. Since then, he's been couch surfing. But with Christmas coming up, his friends aren't really happy with having him on their couches when they have kids and are meant to be enjoying the festive season. He's been kicked out of 3 friends' houses in 10 days. She told me I was right to refuse him, but I've since had other friends say that they feel sorry for him, and I can just let him stay in my spare room until he's back on his feet. And then asked them to put him up then, but they said they would but don't have room. And if they had a spare room like me, then they would let him stay. My family and his are on my side, but I'm starting to doubt myself with what a couple of my friends have said. So Reddit, am I the a-hole? Edit. Just a quick edit as I'm going to bed. I've just spoken with the wife of one of Ray's friends, and she's asked to meet me on my lunch break tomorrow. Apparently, Ray stayed with them for 2 nights before she kicked him out, and there's more going on than what I know of. She's going to tell me the full story tomorrow, but told me that I shouldn't let him anywhere near me, and that he's staying in a B&B, so he does at least have a roof over his head right now. I'll try an update after I've spoken to her. Now for some comments before the last update. Not the a-hole. Stay far away. This is not your problem anymore. Not the a-hole. Tell them he can sleep on the floor. Exactly this. If this thread is still active, can someone please explain to me why the solution is not offered more frequently? For my family get-togethers, it isn't uncommon to have way more people than bedrooms, so we just spread out extra sheets/blankets/pillows on the floor. Not the a-hole. Why is he, a 29-year-old man with nowhere to live, relying on his mommy and trying to force his way back into your life? It's absolutely not your fault or your responsibility to care anymore. It sounds like a user or a bully. This is something I don't understand either, as he has savings. Whilst we were together, he had 5,000 pounds in his bank, and he's a full-time electrician. That's more than enough to get him a decent flat in our area, as it's a low cost of living area. Even with recent rent hikes, he can afford that easily. I don't recognize the man has become this year. He went from skilled tradesman with savings to homeless, broke, and so unbearable, he can't even manage to make it a few days at various friends' houses. It doesn't matter why he's spiraling so hard. Drugs, mental illness, sheer toxic masculinity feeding massive entitlement. It only matters that he is a bad news. And anyone saying you should help him out is a goddamn moron. Well said. If I had to guess, it's drugs. I'm the child of an addict, and I've seen so many of my mother's friends do this. Either way, still not OP's problem. From the way OP's edit went, I'd wager a friend's wife is going to warn OP that her ex has had some violent and/or threatening things directed at OP though. I can't think of another reason why someone would reach out and warn OP to avoid her ex. Drugs would likely not require an in-person chat. Now for the third update. So I posted yesterday about my ex turning up at my house, wanting for me to let him move back in with me. I said no, but a couple of friends thought I should let him, and that messed with my head. Ray's my ex. A few people told me to change my lock, etc. I did that, and changed my alarm code, as well as my stepdad got his friend to put up 4 cameras around my house. I'm also going to start shutting the gate, so that no one can walk up to the house without ringing the bell there first. I put in an edit that I was going to be meeting with one of Ray's friends' wives for lunch today, and I have to say that it was informative for sure. I'll call her Nora, 30 female, and her husband Zane, 29 male. So I went to meet her on my lunch break at a cafe near my work. It's a place that a lot of my coworkers go to, and I know the staff there as well. A few Redditors thought that she might bring Ray with her, so I wanted it to be somewhere I feel comfortable and have backup if needed. Turns out that I didn't need to bother about that. When I got to the cafe, Nora was there on her own. I grabbed some lunch and a drink and sat with her. We went through the usual small talk before she started telling me what had been going on. Ray rang Zayn on Thursday morning saying he had nowhere to go and could he stay with them for a few days. Zayn spoke to Nora and they agreed he could stay in their guest room. Ray went to their house after work and they had a long talk where Ray told them he has a flat lined up, but can't move until January. Zayn and Nora agreed to let him live with them until January, as long as he followed some basic rules and paid for his own food. The rules were things like no bringing women back there, and if he went out drinking, he had to be quiet when he got back so he didn't wake their daughter who's 6. He agreed to all this and paid for a Chinese takeout for them all that night. The next day after work, Ray went to meet his dad at a pub for a few pints. When Zayn and Nora went to bed, Ray still wasn't home. They were woken up at about 2 in the morning by Ray arguing with a woman. Apparently, Ray had met this woman in a bar, took her back to Zayn and Nora's house, got his pleasure, and then told her to get dressed and leave once he was done. She had gotten angry, which started an argument where Ray was saying some horrific stuff to her. Nora took the woman downstairs and got her a taxi, whilst Zayn stayed upstairs arguing with Ray. Once Nora had got rid of the woman, she went back upstairs and tried to calm Zayn and Ray down. At this point, Ray decided to take out his frustrations on Nora, calling her a witch and telling her to do something useful and make him a sandwich, before bursting out laughing like it made the funniest joke ever. This made Zayn lost it and pinned Ray to the wall by his throat. Side note, Ray isn't a fighter at all, whereas Zayn was an amateur boxer in his youth and can handle himself well. Nora managed to get Zayn to let him go, and Ray was shoved in a guest room and told to sleep off the alcohol. It's a miracle that Nora's daughter didn't wake up during this. The next morning, Nora got their daughter ready and went to her mom's after telling Zayn to get Ray out of their house. Zayn agreed, and after Nora left, he woke Ray up and told him to pack his stuff and leave. Ray tried to apologize and beg to stay, but Zayn was having none of it and kicked him out. Going off the timing, I think he left there and came straight to my house. On Sunday, Zayn texted Ray to meet up so that they could speak, and they met up in a pub. Zayn has been friends with Ray since they were 11 and has never seen him act like he has been doing, so he wanted to find out what was really going on. He managed to finally get the truth out of Ray. Basically, Ray has been in contact with his dad for a lot longer than he told us. By this point, it's over 2 years. His dad is a raging misogynist that believes a woman's place is in the kitchen and bedroom. A man's place is to rule the house and be waited on hand and foot, as well as deciding who can and can't be in their lives. He's been dripping this poison into Ray's ear, and it's really taken a hold of him. Zayn told Nora that he just doesn't recognize Ray anymore. Ray wants to start living his life the way his father has told him he would. When Zayn pointed out that Ray's dad is 62, living in a crappy one-bedroom flat, not had a real relationship since his mom left him, has no friends, his family doesn't speak to him, and that he's the type of guy that when he walks into a pub, people finish their pints so they can leave and get away from him, Ray was furious. He told Zayn that his dad is just misunderstood. Zayn responded that people understood his dad, and that's why they stayed away from him. He's toxic. This pretty much ended their conversation and Ray left. Zayn did find out that Ray does have a flat lined up for January, so that was true, and that has found a bed and breakfast he can stay in till the flat is ready at a minimal cost. Zayn and Nora have also decided to go no contact with Ray, as they don't need that toxicity around them, but especially not around their daughter. A few Redditors had said it sounded like Ray was on drugs, so I asked Nora what she thought, and she doesn't think so but can't be sure. She and Zayn think that Ray's just so far under his dad's thumb now that he's completely changed as a person. He believes that everything his dad says is gospel. She did let me know that Ray has a burner IG account that he is using to check on my IG, and I immediately made my account private. He had said something about seeing me waste money on a stupid amount of Christmas presents when I couldn't even help him out to Zayn on Sunday. I'd been to a Christmas market on Saturday afternoon and had posted pictures on IG. All of this just made my resolve stronger that he will not be getting anywhere near my house again. It also made me realize that I don't have any feelings for him anymore, other than frustration at how he's acting and some sadness at how far he's fallen from the man I once knew. I thought that hearing that he had another woman in his bed would annoy me, but there was just nothing. I couldn't have cared less. I thanked Nora for the info and we agreed to keep in touch. We won't be as close as we were when I was with Ray, but it feels good to have someone who knows the entire situation and has seen Ray's behavior with his own eyes. There were also some Redditors that told me to ditch the friends that had told me to let him stay with me. Unfortunately, I can't ditch them completely as they are part of the friend group, and that would just cause unnecessary drama, but I will be keeping my distance from them and only talking to them when part of the group. I'm currently at my sister's, and we are going to watch a Christmas film to get us in the mood to decorate all our houses this weekend. So I will be on the top for the next few hours, if anyone has any questions. Thanks for the votes and giving me some perspective. Reddit isn't all bad. Damn OP, the bullet you dodged. And not just Ray, but I'd imagine at some point that Ray's dad would have tried to talk his way into the house too. Ray, eager to please, would have been only too pleased to house his hero. I want to feel bad for Ray. He's definitely being brainwashed by a toxic tool. But for him not to see how much following his dad cost him is crazy. I'm at a point now where I don't think I ever really knew him. He was always seemed so strong, but to see him basically bow down to everything his dad is saying had blown my mind. Men who are like this are insecure at heart. You really dodged a bullet by being a good sister. Hope your sister's eyes well, and you find peace and happiness. Her eyes doing amazingly well, all things considered. Fingers crossed it keeps going in the right direction. Glad to hear it. My husband does a lot of cornea transplants, so I hear about these cases all the time.